So in life, we don't necessarily see with our eyes. We see with our ears before we see with our eyes. And that's why a lot of times when we're struggling to find calm, we're struggling to get where we need to go, in the sense that it doesn't have to be a physical place, but an emotional space. What we're sifting through is a lot of emotion. So we're going to start to take it apart a little bit. And again, this is from, Dr. Ibrahim Karim. I'm going to do my best to do him justice because he is so wise and so amazing. And just going to give you little bits of his interpretation to the best of my ability, and then add in some of the other things that I've learned and the people that helped me get to where I am today. So when we think of a movie, right? If you're ever watching a movie on a big screen, the screen is actually a projector. So what's actually being shown on the screen is being projected from the opposite side, and it's projecting from a machine. And in life, when we're observing something like that, right? We see this thing going on in front of us. For a lot of us, we know consciously that there is this projector behind us. So bringing it to our life, a lot of what we are seeing is being projected. So it's such an important thing to know, because if we struggle on a day that we struggle, or on a day that we're doing really, really well, it's really important to know that there are some projections happening, and those projections are being stimulated from the projector itself. So we're going to pedal back into the projector now. The projector being projecting heat and projecting light, right? So if you think about the projector in itself, the projector is projecting heat, light, and color. But if the machine goes for too long, it can overheat, right? And for the machine to work, it needs to generate a certain amount of heat. So it's always about the balance of how long do you let it go, the duration of the movie, and how hot do you let it get, right? A quality product is going to be able to manage the heat and not overheat. So that is something to consider. When we talk about our own lives and our own interior design, we are the projector, right? So we work as a projector. There is light outside of us, but there's also light coming from within us. I'm working on all the scientific terms, so I don't have them today, but there's the light that comes from within us. There is the heat that is generated from within us that is projecting whatever we are seeing. Within that projection in itself, the thing that actually puts the slides into the machine, right? Because then there's this movie that's being put into the machine. That concept in itself, for us, when we struggle with an experience, when we struggle with something, when we're feeling a certain way and we're not sure why do I feel a certain way? Why is this tripping me up so bad? And a lot of times it is. So what he says is there's this idea of meaning, right? So whatever gets put into the machine is the meaning. And then that gets projected. So for it to have value in our eyes, we need to connect to it as a source of meaning. Going back to the Chachma, Bina, and Das thing, so shout out Jacqueline for that, the Bina. So what's happening is our brain collects the data and then our gut processes it. So when we're processing it, that's where we're tapping into the meaning aspect of the thought. When we think about what we give meaning to, it's very important to know that a lot of what we give meaning to has been adopted over time. So if we come from a certain family or from a space, right? So really simple one I've shared before is, coming from the West Coast, people say about the East Coast, it's cold here. And they talk about how uncomfortable the cold is. Growing up, that was a belief that it was very uncomfortable. What I think of it now that I'm here, not so bad. If you have the right gear, you're okay. The point being is we take an idea or a concept and we give it meaning. And if we don't formulate meaning around it, then it's what has been adopted from either the people around us or the information given to us. And then what happens is all these pieces are collected and then created into a story. That's really where I go back to like the monsters we create, whatever we decide to develop in our day, right? Whatever that story is that's going to be developed in that day is coming from a space where what data have we collected? What data have we collected and where are we going to go with it? So coming back to the practicality of things now, when we start our day, if we take the time to regulate ourselves, to be mindful of what that intake was, to discover some of the sources of our comforts or discomforts and our projections, it can really help. When we take the time to notice when the body is, right, as the projector in this case, overheating sometimes, right? When it overheats, it needs to sleep. It needs to rest. We turn the machine off, let it cool down. We have to get in touch with our inner heat. And for a lot of us, we struggle with that connection with our energy system. The beautiful thing that he says that when it overheats, right, when the stress is high, when the cortisol is high, what happens is our brain uses the other side of the brain where we start to daydream. The daydreaming in itself is an escape from the reality and is also a form of letting the body relax and cool off rather than overheat. So in our own space, if we take that time throughout the day, but preferably in the morning, to create a solid foundation for ourselves where we can pinpoint, are there projection triggers? Are there things in our day that we're projecting that might not be so authentic to our experience? Just noticing where we are in that space. So I'm going to give you an example here to make it easier. In my own self, yesterday, I was experiencing a little bit of a struggle. It's Monday. A lot's going on. And I had to make some decisions. But I also understood that underneath those decisions, when I've had to make those kind of decisions, right? So each of us have different experiences that we have. There are also some beliefs or projections that show up with me having to make those kind of decisions. What I had to do was separate the way I felt from what was actually going on, because I've done enough work to know that I had a few experiences overlapping. And then on top of that, another layer of overlapping was the fact that in the last few weeks, I wasn't able to do the self-care that I love to do to the best of my ability because of other responsibilities that showed up in my life, right? So there's a couple layers here, and a couple of these layers that they end up kind of towering over you. So that was kind of what happened. And when I was able to feel that way, when I was feeling that way, I had to stop and be like, 1 second, there's a lot going on here. What our mind tends to do in that situation is hyper focus on one thing, right? So in that situation, in that decision that I had to make, but I've done enough to know that to zero in on that would not help. And also, I also have been through enough to know that there was a lot more going on. So things were a lot more complex than they seemed. But if I went to the core of it, right, of it all, rather than looking at what was going on screen, in the sense that all the things that had to be, the stories that were being told and the projection that was being made, I had to turn to the machine and notice that there was a possibility, not only a possibility, but a fact, that the machine itself was overheating. And I had to stop and not make any decisions, but allow the machine to cool off. And in those spaces, the long list of critiques that your mind will give you. My mind was telling me I wasn't being productive and I wasn't showing up the way I needed to. And possibly I wasn't responsible, or maybe I might be hiding from my responsibilities. But when I take out all the emotion and complexity and projection and just come back to light and warmth and heat, everything needed to cool down. The machine needed to cool down. And making a decision from that place would not prove productive. Even though my mind would tell me that when I make that decision, then my mind can be quiet. Going back to the eyes and the ears, the noise doesn't just go away. The noise is connected to that inner energy. So taking that time to pause, to breathe, to take myself out of that space for a while, realign myself, and put in a prayer that hopefully I should make the right decision, and really understand why I would make the decision I'm making. What ended up happening was I made a decision from an inner space rather than an external space. For a lot of us, we try to find these little details, like we'll point on screen and be like, yeah, this isn't right and that isn't right. But when we come from a place where we genuinely feel that there's a lack of alignment, then we eliminate the potential of something becoming a monster that we keep feeding. So just have that in mind as you move through your day. Another really great way to ground ourselves and help refine what is being projected is two things. So number one is tefillah. So it's prayer. The reason we say things like actual constructed prayer is because there is a sense of construction there that's been done already. Obviously going into your own prayer as well, but just notice when the machine starts to overgenerate heat. The other thing is really great is halacha. When we go to the source of halacha or hashkafa, what we're doing is there's a sense of boundaries being created around that. So even when we talk about midos, right? When we work on our midos, what we're doing is we're almost going in, taking a measuring tape and taking the measurements, which is a crucial part of being able to understand or measure fact against a projection, which might be an idea or a belief. And nobody says you have to adopt something and ignore what you're feeling. But what's really important is to know that is to go to the source. And that's why we constantly learn, and we constantly keep repeating and reviewing some of the learning. Because what that does is those projections can come back. Just like with eating and sleeping, we need to re-regulate our schedule sometimes. If we've had a stressful period in our life or a very exciting period in our life, we have to come back and create schedule to create accuracy in these projections. The only thing we have to measure it against is structure that we trust, right? Coming from sources that we respect and we trust. So I find that even learning a little bit every day, even if sometimes you're not feeling meaning within it, like you're not able to feel it, it's like saying, I didn't enjoy a meal today. But your body ends up appreciating the nutrition because it's very valuable. So just being able to take that under consideration, take that and just notice, even on a day that you're not feeling so good or feeling really, really great, noticing what a little bit of education in whatever area, it could be emotional, physical, spiritual, really every single day we need a little bit of each. But we each go through periods in our life where one is in the driver's seat. So that's the share for today. Thank you for joining. I'll open it up if anyone has anything they'd like to share, or if there are any questions. Or thoughts, whatever.
Thank you. I joined late. I'm on the West Coast, so yeah, I'm just feeling like so much fear, like all the time.
Okay. When you're able to like look at what we just spoke about today, right? So when we are feeling fear, when you're looking at it from this concept, again, because we're talking about today's concept of projection, do you feel like possibly are you able to tap into where there might be a source of projection here in any like area?
Yeah, I think it's that I don't feel in alignment, and I don't know, and I'm like, I'm not really in the present. I think I'm just like worried. I'm worried about the future and what's already happened in the past that I can't change, and feeling like things are gonna get worse.
So if that's, let's say if we go into that example of today in the projector, right? So if that's on the projector, right? Validating that that is what you're seeing, right? So that is there. So we're not taking that away. If we come now to the projector itself, which is you, right? Are you able to tap into the sensations within? Think about the things that you are in control of, in the sense of you're breathing and you're feeling and all of that. Just even inhaling and contacting yourself from within.
Mm-hmm.
How does that resonate with you?
I feel like a tightness in my chest and like a queasiness a lot, and
but in this moment. So rather than,
yeah.
Okay, so in this moment you're feeling that. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you able to place your hand on your chest? Like just placing your hand on your chest for a moment, just applying just a little bit of pressure. Chin ever so slightly to the chest. And just lean back. So lean back into the chair. Soften the shoulders. And notice if there's any place within that you're able to soften and relax. With the reminder that as alone as we feel like might be projected, and as out of control as we feel things are, we are never alone. We have a creator that is here supporting every part of our day and everything we feel. And just opening the window to trust, in the sense that, are you able to just take into consideration, rather than looking at it as fact, if your body is struggling to feel the facts right now, that there is a plan and that you are being taken care of. And then just even noticing within the space itself right now, your body is taking in breath, even if it might feel a little bit uncomfortable. You're in a chair. I hope you have food to eat today and a bed to sleep in.
Yeah, I'm moving today.
Okay. So just taking those things into consideration when our body fights or resists acknowledging some of the facts, just creating more simplicity rather than saying, whatever our expectations are, minimizing those expectations to whatever form we can. And the breath is always available to us. There's always somewhere to sit. That could even be on the ground in a park. We always have somewhere to sit. So coming back inside of ourselves, trusting that everything starts from within. And just noticing, rather than all the stories we tell ourselves, just noticing when the generator starts to overheat, the projector starts to overheat.
Yeah.
And just,
yeah, I'm just not sleeping well.
We do go through periods in our life where things are a lot more unpredictable. And periods in our life where things aren't concrete, right? And this sense of uncertainty can project a sense of unsettlement.
Right.
So it's just taking that time to narrow down what is being projected and coming back into the generator and being like, if we learn to balance out, right, the projector, the heat and the light from within, what will happen next is we will have the potential to project a more consistent story in whatever we put out next.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Thank
trusting
you.
that there's a plan. Just trusting that we step into the day and there is the luck in the day, the siyata deshmaya in the day. And we're just here to discover it. And discover it in the simplest forms. So yeah, that's what I can give you today.
Thanks, Esther.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Esther,
Yes.
I know the movie Projector, you've talked about it, but can you walk through like what it would like resemble or feel like when we're doing it? If there's like I'm sure with each person, they like feel it in their body differently when they shift and start projecting, or if there's something that you've learned from that concept.
So everything we see, literally everything we're seeing is coming out of the projector. So what we are seeing is coming out of the projector and how we see the world. So like for one person, when they see somebody, they see what they're wearing. For somebody else, they'll see what they're feeling. For somebody else, it would be the tone in their voice, right? For some of us, we see bad. For some of us, we see good. And depending on where we are, the conditioning of that projector is what is going to be projected in fine detail. And in our daily lives, it's a breakdown. It's a breakdown of many, many little particles. And it's just taking the time that's why we have, hashkafa. We take the time to fine comb through it. We learn, we educate ourselves so we can refine one color and one experience. We are running out of time. Do you want to come back or should I just finish up? It's up to you because I have like about a minute. Because I could elaborate on it.
No, I'd love to hear more and elaborate on it. I do need to, like, if we sign and come back in for me,
yeah.
Maybe we could set another time just because I do need to get my kids out shortly.
Okay, so I'll just finish it up here. So basically,
Perfect. Thank
every
you.
single thing we see and how we see it is a projection. Some of it is accurate and some of it is not. But what is always the most accurate is how the projector is produced, how it's generating. Is it overheating? Is it not? If we're not sure if what we're seeing is accurate, it's always important to come back to the projector and be like, is my projector overheating or is it at a good temperature? Right? Going back to the breath. That's how you'll discover if something is more or less accurate. Even if something might seem right on a projector, if the body's overheating, you know that it's not accurate. So have a wonderful day, everyone, and to be continued.